The Giants got a lot done during the draft, but there were a few things they didn't get done. Should we be concerned about them? I'm going to tell you what those things are, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on whether or not they're of concern. That's coming up next on the LockedOn Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. My name is Patricia Traina. Happy Tuesday to everybody, and thank you so much, as always, for making the Locked On Giants podcast your first listen of the day, or if you're watching on YouTube, your first watch of the day. And on today's episode, normally we do a Twitter Tuesday. We're not going to do a Twitter Tuesday today, mainly because I'm going to do a big mailbag over at Giants Country, but what we are going to do is I'm going to talk about some of the things the Giants didn't do over draft weekend and the days after, and why we shouldn't worry about them. You know, I know some fans wrote to me and they said, oh my God, the Giants didn't do this, they didn't do that. What are they thinking? Relax, folks. I'm going to explain why they didn't do it, give you my theories, and hopefully calm you down a little bit. You know, don't worry, be happy. The Giants had a pretty good draft. I know it doesn't look like it, but I feel really good about this draft class, and hopefully they will prove me right. All right, so I have 5 things on my list. Let's kick this off, shall we? Number 1, people were lamenting that the Giants did not draft a pure center. Now, just a quick thing about drafting positions or not drafting positions. Just because the Giants didn't draft a specific position doesn't mean that they didn't have that position on their board. It just means simply that the players they might have been looking at were either gone, or they just didn't feel that the players that were remaining on the board didn't represent good value. All right, so a lot of people said to me, what are they going to do about center? They have John Feliciano, who they signed for 1 year. Chances are Feliciano won't be the long-term answer. What do? They don't have a young guy to develop. Well, actually, folks, they do. They have a couple of different options. Number 1, they have Shane Lemieux, who could play center. I don't know if you guys remember this or not, but back in college when he was at Oregon, Shane Lemieux was actually cross-training to play center in addition to left guard. So that went on for the longest time. He was doing some snaps at center, and then the injury happened. But I think all along the Giants might have been thinking he would be the backup to Nick Gates before the injuries all started kicking in, and that plan fell by the wayside. Now the Giants also have currently on the roster Ben Bredeson, I believe, can play center. And here's the other thing, folks. The 2 guards that they took in this draft class, the 2 kids from North Carolina, Izudu and McKeithen, they're going to likely cross-train to learn the center position, because the Giants do believe in position versatility. Now, I don't know both guys necessarily are going to cross-train, but I would be willing to bet that one at least is going to cross-train. And the more that they can learn, the more that they contribute, the better their chances of playing sooner than later. So that's what I think is going to happen with the center position. You know, if all else fails and the Giants find that, you know, nobody's coming along, that Lemieux doesn't look like he's going to cut it, that these kids don't look like they're going to cut it, worst case scenario, they go back into free agency next year and they get themselves a veteran center. All right, the next thing that I'm not as concerned about now, I mean, I think I was more concerned about this when the draft was going on, and now not so much so. The Giants didn't draft a running back, and I was pretty sure they would. And upon second thought, when I was doing my analysis of the various position units for Giants Country in an article that I hope to have out on Tuesday, I said to myself, okay, they have some depth. Some young depth. They've got Gary Brightwell. They've got Sandro Platzschumer. They have Antonio Williams, three guys behind Saquon Barkley and Matt Breida. But here's the other thing, while those guys are still learning their craft and whatnot and developing, I have a feeling that maybe we might see Kadarius Toney and possibly even Wan'Dale Robinson take some snaps out of the backfield. He's kind of a gadget player, much like, a Kadarius Toney. So I could see the Giants conceivably having them run, a few snaps per game. I don't know how many, but, you might see them a couple each, which, given how the Giants averaged about maybe 15 touches a game, might just be enough to contribute. But, obviously I don't know what Kafka and Dable are going to do with the running game. But I do know, based on history, the Chiefs offense and the Bills offense generally lean more heavily into the pass and 11 personnel. So I think that we'll see probably more passing situations than running situations, which is probably why the Giants think they can get by without a running back. But again, there will be veterans out there on the street if their plan doesn't work out or if injuries kick in. So right now, I can't say I'm worried or as worried about it as I was, when I saw the draft unfold and they didn't have any running backs. All right, I've got three more things on my list. I'll tell you what those are coming up next. All right, Giant fans, we have more coming up on today's LockedOn Giants podcast. But first, BetOnline.net is the only place that offers the best information on the latest odds, contests, and player props for all your sports betting needs. No matter what sport you're into, BetOnline.net has you covered. Plus, they offer everything you need to know for live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. Head on over to BetOnline.net today to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Giant fans, we have more coming up on today's Locked On Giants podcast. But first, no business owner wants to deal with the hassle of energy decisions. You just want your business to run smoothly and to pay a fair rate for power. But coming off the back of one of the highest priced winters in the last decade, if your business was on a purely variable or market rate, you paid out of the nose. Many New York business owners switched suppliers out of frustration, but unless they chose alternative pricing options, they're still at risk for a January repeat. Catalyst Power partners with you or your trusted energy consultant to produce power supply plan that fits your business and your market risk tolerance. They have a suite of options customizable to your business's need, including options that bundle with or focus on renewable energy. Right now in New York, they're offering an on-site solar solution for your business that requires zero installation, maintenance, or material purchase costs. That's right, no capital expense costs for you. To sweeten the deal, qualified businesses could be eligible for up to 6 months of at-cost energy supply from Catalyst Power. Go to catalystpower.com/LockedOnGiants to learn more. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm Patricia Traina. Happy to have you with me. And just a quick note on stuff that's coming up here on the Locked On Giants podcast. I have booked a bunch of interviews with the Locked On college hosts of the various teams from which the Giants draft class has come from, and some of these undrafted free agents. And I'm going to be doing segments with all of them, and we're going to get firsthand information from the people that know these kids right now the best, the Locked On hosts that cover these individual players. And that's going to come up all throughout the week. I'm going to do interviews, segments. I'm going to have maybe a couple where I just have one guest on for the entire show. So that's the plan for the rest of the week and possibly into next week, because I think I'm going to possibly have a lot of stuff left over to use to next week. So that's what we're planning. And then next week, remember, Friday, Saturday is the rookie mini camp. I will be there. I will have coverage of that. We'll have Twitter Tuesday return next week. So much coming up. Hope you stay with us on YouTube. By the way, if you haven't already done so, please like and subscribe. Hit that little bell button to be notified when I post new videos. Would appreciate it. I want to get to 5,000 subscribers so I can give away, or hold my giveaway that I have planned for you guys. So no mugs or lollipops for me if I hit 5,000. The next gift's on me, from me to you. So, All right, let's get back to my list. A concern that a lot of people still have is the fact that the Giants apparently don't look like they're making any changes to their scouting department. Now, for those who missed the news yesterday, Chris Pettit and Kyle O'Brien were relieved of their duties. They are moving on. The expectation is that Pettit will be replaced probably by someone in Shane's past. I think the name I had heard, and this isn't official, but there was a gentleman from Miami that he worked with, and I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but that's one name to watch, I was told. Whether or not that person takes the job, I don't know, but it's going to be someone from Shane's past, and I don't necessarily think that past is going to be from Buffalo. I don't think Brandon Beane's going to be that generous and let him, take on, keep rating the staff there. As far as Kyle O'Brien goes, he was in a newly created position. I don't know that they're going to fill that position, to be honest with you. They might, but I don't think they will. So, but we'll see. Now, the concern people have that keeps getting expressed to me is that it's still the same scouts that Dave Gettleman hired or Jerry Reese hired. Nothing's changing. Why should we be optimistic? Well, folks, first let me tell you this. Number one, my understanding is that the majority of the scouts have been re-upped. They will be back. But here's the thing, folks. What's going to likely change is how they present their information. All right. Now, a couple of years ago, Dave Gettleman had them change it. I don't know the extent of the change, but the report writing was done a little differently. That is going to change to how Joe Shane wants the reports written. So to give you an example, and I'm going to go off of my training from the Scouting Academy. The Scouting Academy would have us write the games we were watching. We would write pros and cons of each player. And then we would do like a little summary. So maybe Shane will change that up to where instead of writing paragraphs, you're writing bullet points. And you're just focusing on what a guy can do and what he can't do, where he has room to grow, where he maybe can't do something, but with coaching he might be able to do something, and then wrapping it up with a little summary, kind of similar to what Nick Filato did over on Giants Country when he was doing the draft previews. I think that might be, a better way to do things, or possibly the way the Giants will do things, is just to follow that format. But I don't know. I don't know exactly how they do it now. I do know that things were changed up. But basically, folks, the scouts are the scouts. They're all going to be taught to or asked to look for certain things in certain players. The coaching staff goes to the general manager and the assistant general manager with a list of things that they want in a specific player, and it's up to the scouts to find that player. It's really that simple. It's not just a matter of the scouts go out and they say, oh, this player looks good, so we're going to recommend him to the coaching staff and to the GM. That's not really how it works. So that being said, the fact that there's not an overhaul of the scouts, I don't think is that big of a deal. I think the overhaul came already when they moved on from certain guys, or certain guys retired. We'll see what this new batch does. Shane was evaluating them, and again, my understanding is there's not going to be a massive overhaul, if any overhaul, within the scouting ranks itself. So we'll see how that works out. But so far, it looks like this class, like I said, is going to be a good one. But we won't know for 3 years. So we could be optimistic, or we could be pessimistic. Your choice, obviously. I choose to be optimistic, and I choose to give them the benefit of the doubt. Okay, another thing that people were concerned about is, why didn't the Giants draft a punter? As a matter of fact, as I record this, the Giants haven't even, I don't believe they've signed a punter, an undrafted free agent punter, to bring into camp. And people are like, what is going on? Folks, I wouldn't worry about it, because look, training camp competitions are going to go down. Punters are going to shake free. if the Giants aren't happy with Jamie Gillian, I think they'll be able to pick up another punter. I realize that flipping the field position is important. You want to have somebody who's an asset, not somebody who every time he punts the ball, you got to hope that he gets off a good punt. I get that, folks. But they can pick up a punter at some point if they need it. There will be options. I'm not as concerned about it as maybe a few of you are. And I don't think they are as well as noted by their lack of action. So, all right, couple more on my list. I'm going to tell you what they are right after this. All right, Giant fans, we have more coming up on today's Locked On Giants podcast. But first, with the ever-increasing number of makes and models of vehicles and trucks, there's only one place to find what you need quickly for your car or truck, and that's at rockauto.com. Rock Auto is a family business with over 20 years of offering competitive pricing on thousands of parts for every make, model, and manufacturer. Check out their website today, and don't forget to write down Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so that they know we sent you. RockAuto.com ships directly to your door. They offer amazing selection and reliably low prices. Don't shop anyplace else. Find everything you need at RockAuto.com. All right, welcome back, Giant fans, to the Locked On Giants podcast. Patricia Traina here with you. And again, starting tomorrow, I'm going to have some interviews for you. As I record this, I have my little schedule here that I've marked down all my interviews that I'm going to have. And for Tuesday, I have 2 interviews that are scheduled. Wednesday, I've got 5. Oh my gosh, 5 on Wednesday, which means I'm probably not going to get a lot of writing done. And then I've got, it looks like about 3 on Thursday. So a lot of good stuff, I hope you'll find coming up here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And, we'll just keep on rolling right along as always. So, all right, we're looking at some things that caused a little bit of worry amongst Giant fans, things that I'm not necessarily as worried about. But let's continue the list. A lot of people, I think, were disappointed that the Giants didn't draft a quarterback. Now, given how the board fell and how I think there was one quarterback chosen early and then another quarterback wasn't chosen until like the 3rd round, that just reinforced what I had been saying all along, that the quarterback class this year was not a strong class. So rather than reach on a quarterback, the Giants, they're going to maybe bring in, an undrafted free agent on a tryout basis because they do need arms to throw in minicamp. But look, would you have rather they have reached on a quarterback that, maybe would have gone the way of a Jake Fromm? I wouldn't have. I mean, the Giants have so many holes, and it was obvious as the draft unfolded that Joe Schoen was intent on filling as many of those holes as possible. Now, I've mentioned before, I mentioned it on yesterday's Monster Pod that I did with the Entertainer and the show before that I do believe that if the Giants feel that Daniel Jones is not the answer, they will figure out a way to get a quarterback, whether they trade up to get one, whether they acquire a veteran, they will figure out a way to get a quarterback if they need to. Now, I know I also said that I wouldn't have minded if they picked a developmental quarterback, but again, just seeing how the board fell, how the NFL scouting community felt about the quarterbacks, pretty clear that, there wasn't that high of an opinion and nobody was going to really reach for a quarterback. So I'm okay with that, I think. Some of you might not be. I know there were some Malik Willis fans out there that wanted the Giants to take him. There was just no way that was going to happen, folks. Look, they might as well have taken a billboard out in Times Square and advertised that. There was just no way that was going to happen. Sorry to burst your bubble if you thought that was going to happen. All right, one more thing that I'm not too upset about, only because I think there's a solution. What that solution is, I'm not really sure what they'll do, but James Bradberry is still on the roster. Now, you can make the argument that the Giants didn't draft his long-term replacement. unless you feel that Aaron Robinson is going to be the long-term replacement, which is certainly feasible. I mean, it's possible that that's what they're looking to do, convert him from a slot cornerback to a perimeter quarterback. It's possible. But James Bradberry, look, they're already on the hook for $2 million guaranteed. Now, if they trade him, they will get rid of the entire base salary. At this point, though, folks, the market has pretty much dried up. I don't think a trade is going to be in the makings rather. What I think is going to happen is they're just going to have to restructure the deal. And by restructure, I'm talking adding some voidable years onto the contract and just spreading out the converted difference over the life of, the extra voidable years to lessen the hit. It's unfortunate, it's an ugly contract. Bradberry is not a bad player, but look, if they're going to have to keep him, might as well see if you can keep him on a lower cap number. And that's what it looks like it's happening. If the Giants were going to release Bradberry, I think they might have done it already, because that's the easy way out. What's the point in waiting? I mean, I know the Giants don't need the money to sign the draft picks until the start of training camp at the latest, but, they could just as easily get it done during the rookie minicamp too. There's no rush, though, is what I'm getting at. And if James Bradberry does have to stay, I don't think that would be the worst thing in the world. I really don't. Right now, he's been staying away from the offseason program. If he continues to stay away, the Giants won't have to pay out any off-season workout bonus, which I don't remember if he has or not. I think he does have one, but it's not a lot of money. So, yeah, you might as well, if you're going to keep him, might as well put his talents to use. And I suspect that Don Martindale might have a way to use James Bradberry's talents. What that way is, I don't know, but we'll see. All right, Giant fans, that's going to do it for me on tonight's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, don't forget to tune in tomorrow. We'll have interviews. I have to just put everything together, so I don't know who's going to be up first, who's going to be on deck and whatnot, but we're going to start learning more about these draft picks individually, and I look forward to bringing that to you. So, again, folks, as always, thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day, or if watching on YouTube, your first watch of the day. If you didn't check out yesterday's episode with The Entertainer, do so. That was a great show. We were on for about an hour and 45 minutes. I know that's a long period of time, but very entertaining. We took your questions. We talked draft. We talked different scenarios. Always a fun time when Chris Guzzo, a.k.a. The Entertainer, comes on. So check it out. All right, folks, that'll do it for me. Take care, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.